everyone, welcome back to Pabbly. In this video, we're going to learn how to create wave invoice on Paperform submission. So I'm an owner for digital marketing agency and using Paperform, I have created a form with the help of which I collect my clients' inquiries on the services that they are interested in. Here what I want is that as soon as many of the clients, a new form submission is going to be done using Paperform and they're going to select the service that they're interested in. According to the selected service, I want to create an invoice of that service in my Wave account. Now creating these invoices manually can be very time consuming. So what I've done is I've simply automated this entire process with the help of Pabbly Connect, which is an amazing automation and integration software. And using Pabbly Connect, I'm going to build the connection between Paperform and Wave with the help of it. So if you also want to learn about this amazing automation process step by step, for that let me take you to my screen. In this video, we're going to learn how to create Wave invoice on Paperform submission. So as an owner of a digital marketing agency, I use Paperform to collect client service requests and project details through easy to use customizable forms. And I use Wave in order to create professional invoices and handle my billing seamlessly. By connecting these two applications, I ensure that whenever any of the clients submits the form using Paperform, automatically, according to the service that my client selects, an invoice is created in my Wave account. This integration helps me maintain streamlined workflow and focus on delivering exceptional marketing services to my clients. And I'm going to create the automation between these two applications with the help of Pabbly Connect. So on the screen, you can see the website of Pabbly Connect, that is pabbly.com/connect. After browsing this website, we need to sign in to our Pabbly Connect account. But if you're a new user, you can sign up for free and get 100 free tasks every month. So as I'm an existing user, I'm going to sign into my Pabbly Connect account. After signing in, you can see the all Pabbly apps written in front of you, in which you can see all the applications of Pabbly, from which we're going to select Pabbly Connect by clicking on this Access Now button right here. Then Pabbly Connect's dashboard is going to appear in front of you. In order to start an automation process in Pabbly Connect, we need to create a workflow. For that, click on this top right corner button right here that says Create Workflow. A dialog box is then going to appear in front of you, which is asking for the workflow name and for us to select a folder. So for the name of my workflow over here, I'm going to give it as Create Wave Invoice on Paperform Submission. So this is the name that I want to give to my workflow, okay? After that, it is asking for us to select a folder. So on the left side of my screen, you can see I have created multiple folders in my Pabbly Connect account, from which I'm going to select a specific folder in which I want to save this workflow in. For that, click on this drop down. These are the folders from which I'm going to select Paperform Automations as the folder I want to save this workflow in. After giving the name to the workflow and selecting the folder, I'm going to click on this Create button in order to create a workflow. A workflow is created in the name of Create Wave Invoice on Paperform Submission, and you can see there are two windows in front of you. One says Trigger, other says Action. So what is Trigger and Action? Trigger and Action are the two most important steps of our automation process because our process depends on these two concepts. Over here, Trigger says when this happens and Action says do this. That means what is Action? Action is a response towards our trigger. In an automation process, there can be only one trigger step but multiple action steps. We are going to set up our trigger step first. And for the trigger application over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it as Paperform. As using Paperform, I'm collecting the data of my client who are interested in my services. I want that as soon as the form submission is going to be done by my client over here using this form that I've created using Paperform, automatically over here the trigger should capture the response of that. And that is why for my trigger application, I have selected it as Paperform. And for the trigger event, I'm going to select as New Form Submission. After selecting the trigger application and the event, you can see that Pabbly Connect has provided us with the webhook URL. Using this unique webhook URL, we're going to build the connection between Paperform and Pabbly Connect by following the steps given here below in the help desk. So what I'm going to do is, firstly, I'm going to copy this URL from here. After copying the URL, I'm going to open the form that I've created using Paperform. So this is the form and I want to connect this form to Pabbly Connect. For doing that, from this panel, go to this After Submission and from the drop down, go to Integrations and Webhook section right here. As you're going to do that, if you scroll down, you can see webhooks. Click on this over here. It says Add Webhook. Click on Add Webhook button. It is asking for the webhook URL. Paste the webhook URL that Pabbly Connect has provided us. And for the trigger on, there are two options from which select New Submission as the triggered on. Okay. After entering the URL and selecting the trigger on, click on this Create button right here. As you're going to do that, you can see the webhook URL is now been successfully added to the swap that we have created using Paperform. As now the webhook URL is added, I'm going to go back to my workflow and scroll down. You can see it is saying waiting for webhook response. So now to check whether Paperform is successfully connected to Pabbly Connect or not, what we are going to do is we are going to do the test submission of this form that I've created using Paperform. And after doing the test submission, I'm going to check whether Pabbly Connect captures the response of the test submission being done or not. Okay, for that we're going to do the test submission. For doing the test submission from this panel, I'm going to go to the share and social and URL option right here. This is the URL. I'm going to open this in a new tab right here. So this is the form that I've created using Paperform, using which I'm collecting my clients' inquiries that they have regarding my services. Okay, as with the help of this form, they're going to submit the service that they're interested in my business. These are the 3 services that I provide. You can see right over here in this form. Okay, let us do the test submission. For the first name over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write it as new. For the last name over here, I'm going to write it as lead44. For the email over here, I'm going to write it as new44@pabblytudes.com. And for the phone number over here, I'm going to write in a dummy mobile number. Okay. After that, it is asking for the service interested in. These are the 3 options right over here that I provide, from which I'm going to select this web development service right here. Okay. After filling in all the required details, I'm going to click on this submit button. It says submission successful. As now the submission is successful, I'm going to go back to my workflow and scroll down. And as you can see right over here, Pabbly Connect has captured the response of the form submission. Let us tally the response. This is the form ID. You can see right over here. Trigger comes as submission. This is the team ID, submission ID, and all the other details. If I'm going to further scroll down right here, you can see the service interested in value comes as web development. You can see right here. For the phone number, this is the mobile number of our lead. For the email over here, this is the email that is new44@pabblytudes.com. Last name as lead44. First name as new with all the other details. As now the response of the form submission has been captured in our trigger, this means that Paperform has now been successfully connected to Pabbly Connect and our trigger setup is done. After setting up our trigger step, we need to set up our action step. Now, using the form submission of my client, I want to create an invoice in my Wave account. For that, we're going to set up our action step. And for the action application over here, we are going to select it as Wave. I'm going to select my action application as Wave. In order to create an invoice in our Wave account, what we have to do is we have to check whether the person who have done the form submission using Paperform is an existing customer in my Wave account or not. Firstly, we're going to search this client as a customer in our Wave account. Then if the customer is an existing customer, we're going to directly create an invoice for that customer. But if the client who have done the form submission using Paperform is a new person, firstly, we're going to create that client as a customer in our Wave account. And after creating that client as a customer in our Wave account, we are then going to create the invoice. It is important for the client who have done the form submission using Paperform to be a customer in our Wave account. Then only the invoices for that customer is going to be created. Okay. So firstly, what we're going to do is in this action, for the action event, I'm going to search for the customer first. For that, over here, an action event is provided, that is get customer by email. Okay, we're going to select this action event over here, that is get customer by email. Then I'm going to click on this connect button right here to connect Wave to Pabbly Connect. After that, a new window is going to appear in front of you, on which click on add new connection, or else you can select the existing connection that you have. After that, click on connect with Wave button right here. As I'm going to do that, a window is then going to appear in front of you, which is asking for a permission. So I'm going to click on this allow access button. As this is saved process, my data is perfectly saved with Pabbly Connect. So I'm going to click on this allow button right here. As I've done that, you can see I've successfully authorized Wave to Pabbly Connect. After authorizing over here, as we're going to search for the customer, whether this is an existing customer or we're going to create a new customer or not, it is asking for us to select the business in which we want to search for the customer. For the business, I have a business in the name of Pabbly. So I'm going to select the business over here as Pabbly. Okay, so I've selected it as Pabbly. After that, it is asking for the customer email. With the help of this email, we are going to check whether it is an existing customer or not who have done the form submission using Paperform. For the data of this field, what we are going to do is we are going to map the data. Mapping means inserting data from the previous step. So we're going to insert the data from the previous step of this workflow. How it works is that as soon as I'm going to click on this field, this was the previous step, that is Paperform new form submission. As I'm going to click on it, this is the same response that was captured in our previous step. In this response, we have received the client's data and we want to search this client as a customer in our Wave account. So for the data of this email field, I'm going to search for the email right here. So as I've done that, this is the email of my client who have done the submission and I want to search for this client as a customer in my Wave account. So I'm going to select the data of the email from my previous response. As I've selected the data from my previous response, the data is mapped. And as I map the data has now become dynamic. Now, whenever a new response is going to be captured in our previous step, automatically the new data is going to be updated in place of this mapped data. After entering, I'm going to click on this Save and Send Test Request button. As I've done that, you can see right over here, we have received the ID. This is the customer ID. You can see right over here. This means that this client who have done the form submission using Paperform is an existing customer in my Wave account. Okay. You can see the name of the client, newlead44, email as newlead44@pabblytudes.com with the mobile number. This is the address of the client. You can see right over here. This means this is an existing customer in my Wave account. Okay. As now we have the customer details in our Wave account, not what we have to do is we have to create an invoice for the same customer in our Wave account. But we have two conditions here. One is there is going to be an existing customer in my Wave account. Okay, so in this case, this is an existing customer. So I'm going to simply create the invoice. But we have the second case in this workflow as well. That is, this client who have done the form submission using Paperform, that client might not be an existing customer in my Wave account. In that case, firstly, we're going to create this client as a customer in my Wave account. And after creating that client as a customer, I'm going to create the invoice for that customer, for that new customer that we have created. Now, as we have two cases in this workflow, for that, we're going to set up our action step. And our action application over here is going to be router. With the help of router, we can set up two conditions in this workflow. Okay, we can conditionally run this workflow. Okay. For the action event, I'm going to select it as conditionally run, and then I'm going to click on this connect button. As I'm going to do that, you can see there are two routes, route 1 and route 2. Over here, as we have two conditions, one is that the client is going to be an existing client, and the second is we are going to create a new customer. So now we're going to set up the routes according to our requirements. Firstly, we're going to set up our route 1. For that, click on the set filter and action step. We are going to firstly set up a filter. And the filter is going to be what? As in our previous step, while we were searching for the customer right over here, what was the response? In the response, we have received a customer ID. You can see right away, this is the customer ID. Okay. So now as we have the customer ID over here, if this is an existing customer, this ID is going to exist in this response. But if this is not a customer in our Wave account, there is not going to be any response in this field right over here. So what we are going to do is now we are going to set up our action step for the filter over here. And over here for the select label part, I'm going to select this customer ID that I have received in my previous response. Okay. As this route 1 is for the condition when the customer exists. So this means that the select label is going to be filtered. I'm going to select as exist. Whenever the customer ID is going to exist in our previous response, then this route 1 should be executed. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Save and Send Test Request button after setting up this filter. As I've done that, the status comes as success and the message comes as condition is true. As the customer ID exists, that is why it comes as condition is true. Okay. After setting up a filter, now what is going to happen? That whenever by the client a form submission is going to be done using Paperform, over here in the response of this wave of our action step, it is going to search for the customer. As they're going to get the customer, if it is an existing customer, there is going to be the customer ID. So over here, after this router is going to act, and how it is going to act, that if this route 1 condition is true, that means if the customer ID exists, then this route 1 is going to be executed. Okay. As now we have the customer ID, what we are going to do is we're going to directly create an invoice for that customer. For that, what we are going to do is we are going to select our action application over here as Wave. As now we're going to create a Wave invoice. Okay. And for the action event, I'm going to select it as create an invoice. I'm going to select as create an invoice right here. And then I'm going to click on this connect button. As I have the existing connection, I'm going to select the existing connection. But if you want, you can add a new connection. Then click on the save button right here. As I've done that, you can see Wave is connected to Pabbly Connect. After that, it is asking for the business. In which business do we want to create the invoice in? For that, I'm going to select as Pabbly. It is asking for the customer. Which customer do we have to create the invoice for? For the customer field, we have to map the data of the ID of our customer. For that, toggle this map button on from here. Erase this existing data from here and map the data of the customer ID that you have received right here. Okay, so this is a customer for which we are going to create the invoice in our Wave account. Okay. After that, over here, it is asking for the line item product ID. For which product do we want to create the invoice for? We have received the list in the drop-down of all the products that you have created in your Wave account. Okay. We have to create the invoice for this customer who have done the form submission according to the service that they have selected while doing the form submission using Paperform. So I have provided three services: social media marketing, search engine optimization, and web development. According to the service that my client has selected while doing the form submission, the invoice should be created. So over here for the product ID, we have to enter the ID of the products that we have created in our Wave account. Okay. So I have created all these products from which I'm going to looking for social media marketing, web development, and over here that is search engine optimization. So these are the three products that I've created in my Wave account for which the invoices are going to be created. And over here, as it is asking for the product ID, how we can have the product ID for all these products. Over here, I'm going to select the web development over here. Okay, so this is the product that I'm looking for. I'm going to toggle this map button on. As I'm going to do that, this is the product ID. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this ID from here. Now here what I want is that according to the service that my client selects, the invoice should be created. So we have to map the data in place of this product ID. And how we're going to do that? By adding a lookup in our workflow. I'm going to go back. I'm going to add another action step in this workflow right here. And for the action application over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it as lookup table. With the help of lookup table, we can look into the values as we want to select in the response right here. Okay, let me explain. I'm going to select my action event as lookup table as well. Then I'm going to click on this connect button. It is asking for the lookup key. Which value do we have to look up to? I want to look up to the value of the service that my client selects while they do the form submission. For that, I'm going to map the data of the service that my client has selected, that is web development right here. Okay. After that, over here, we have to create a table, a lookup table. Okay. Over here, it is asking for the label and the value. The label is going to be the product name and the value is going to be the product ID. So according to the label name, over here, the product ID is going to be selected. Over here, I'm going to enter my label name as, this is the label name, that is web development, that is 37,999 rupees. The value is going to be the product ID that we have copied in our previous response. Okay. So this is the label and this is the value right here. Okay. So now whenever the lookup key is going to be equal to web development, the response is going to come over here as this product ID. Okay. Now we can add another value over here. Now I'm going to add two other products that I'm selling that are been displayed on the form submission right here. So I'm going to enter the label and the value. So I have entered the values for the label web development. This is the product ID. This is the other product, social media marketing. This is the ID for the search engine optimization. This is the ID of this product. Okay. Now, as I'm going to click on the save and send test request button, you can see over here in the result, we have received the product ID over here for the product web development. Okay. So now what we can do is using this ID, we can map the data in the route that we have set up. Okay. As now we successfully received the response of the product ID, I'm going to rename the step from here. As with the help of the step, we are receiving the product ID. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name this step as product ID right here. Okay. With the help of the step, we are receiving the product ID. Now what we are going to do is we are going to set up our router step fully. So I'm going to select over here. Now what we're going to do is we are going to map the data of this product ID. For this, toggle this map button on, erase the existing data from here. And for the product ID, we're going to map the data of the product ID from this step right here. Okay. After that, over here, it is asking for the item description, price, quantity, currency, and all the other details. Okay. So now as it is asking for all these details, we have to enter the item description, item price, and item quantity. For the quantity, I'm going to select as 1 as there is only one quantity. But over here, we have to enter the item description and the item price. And how we can enter the item description and price? For that, we have to add lookup table again. As with the help of lookup table, we can have the description and the price of the item that my client has selected while doing the form submission. So I'm going to go back and add another action step to this workflow. For the action application over here, I'm going to again select it as lookup table. And for the action event, I'm going to again select as lookup table as well. Then I'm going to click on this connect button. It is asking for the lookup key. The lookup key is going to be the product name only. So I'm going to select the lookup key over here, the service that my client has selected while doing the form submission. And now we're going to set up the lookup table for the item description and the item price. This is for the item description right away. This lookup is for the item description. So over here for the label, I'm going to select it as web development again. Okay. And for the value, I'm going to enter the item description. Right. This is the item description for this product. You can see right over here. This is the item description. Now in the similar manner, I'm going to enter the item description for the two other services that I provide right here in the lookup table. So you can see right over here, I've entered the item description for social media marketing and search engine optimization as well. Okay. So as now I've entered the value of the item descriptions. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the save and send test request button. As I'm going to do that, according to the service that my client select, you can see we have received the item description. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this step. As with the help of the step, I have received the item description. So I'm going to write over here as item description. Okay, so this is the step with the help of which we are going to get the item description. Now with the description, we want the item's price as well, the services price. For that, we're going to add another action step to this workflow. And for the action application, over here, I'm going to again select it as lookup table. For the action event as lookup table, then I'm going to click on this connect button. It is asking for the lookup key. The lookup key is going to be the service selected by my client by doing the form submission. I've entered the key. After that, over here, it is asking for the lookup table value. Okay, for the lookup table value, we are going to enter the value of the prices of our item. So the first item is web development over here. The value over here of this item is going to be, okay, so this is the value right here, that is 37,999. Okay, and I'm going to add more item prices right over here with the name. So I have entered the name of my product with the pricing of it. Okay, so I've entered all three of them. Now I'm going to click on the save and send test request button. We have received the price of the item as well. So I'm going to rename this lookup table step from here. And as I'm getting the price of the item over here, so I'm going to select over here the name as item price. Okay, I'm going to update the name. As now we have the item description and the item price. Now let us move on to our step while we are creating the invoice. Now we're going to enter our item description over here. This is the item description. I'm going to map the rate of the item description. For the price, I'm going to map the rate of the price right here. Okay. Quantity will come as 1 as this is service. So I'm going to select it as 1. Currency is INR as I'm dealing with INR, that is Indian rupees. For the invoice date over here, let us enter the invoice date of the form submission date only. So I'm going to search for the date over here. In this response, we have received the date. So this is the date over here. So I'm going to select the date over here. Okay. So this is the date I want. Okay. After that, it is asking for the invoice number and all the other details which I do not require. So I'm going to skip the part. It is asking for the invoice title. So I'm going to give the invoice title as the name of my client. Okay. I'm going to map the date of the name of my client over here. That is going to be first name space the last name. And I'm going to write over here as invoice. Okay. So this is the name of my invoice name and it says invoice right here. Okay. After that, for the status of the invoice, I'm going to select as saved. It is asking for the due date also over here. For the due date, let's suppose I'm going to enter the due date manually. I want the due date to be 31st of March 2025. So I'm going to enter the date over here manually. Okay. After that, it is asking for all these details which I do not require. So I'm going to skip the part. After filling in all the required details, I'm going to click on the save and send test request button. As I've done that over here, we can see we have received a response, which is a positive response. So now I'm going to open my Wave account. Okay, so this is my Wave account. And to check invoices, I'm going to go to this invoices section right here in my Wave account. As I'm going to land on the invoices section of my Wave account, you can see over here a new invoice has been created in my Wave account. We're going to check the invoice. Over here, the invoice is in the name of new lead 44 invoice. You can see right over here. This is the address of the customer. You can see right over here. With that, we have the invoice date. You can see right here. Okay. If you're going to see that item comes as web development with the product description, you can see right over here. The quantity is 1. The price is 37,999. The amount is 37,999 and the total comes as 37,999. As now the invoice is successfully created in my Wave account, this route one that we have set up right over here for the existing customer is now been successfully created. I'm going to close this route from here. I'm going to now rename the route and the name of the route that I want to give is existing customer. This is the route one name. I'm going to update it. Okay. As now over here, the route one for the existing customer is now been successfully created. My second condition was that if now this person who have done the form submission using Paperform is not an existing customer in my Wave account. So what we're going to do is, in this case, we're going to set up our second route in which we're going to first create that client as a customer in my Wave account and then we are going to create the invoice for that customer. Okay. So now, as over here in the response of our Paperform submission trigger, we have received the response of the existing customer over here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to recapture this response over here. I'm going to do a new form submission. And now when I'm going to do the new form submission, I'm going to capture the response of a client which is not an existing customer. Okay, so now I'm going to recapture the response over here. Click on yes. As I'm going to do that, it is saying waiting for webhook response. So now let us do the new form submission. For that, go to share, social and URL. Open this link in a new tab right here. And now I'm going to fill in the details of a client which is not going to be an existing customer in my Wave account. So as I'm going to do that over here, you can see I filled in the details. First name as test, last name as customer 455, email as test455@pabblytudes.com with a mobile number, and the service I've selected as search engine optimization. I'm going to click on the submit button to the test submission. It says submission successful. I'm going to go back to my workflow, and over here you can see the response of the new form submission has been captured. Now in the response, you have received the client's details. Over here, you can see this is the email address that was test455. And over here for the phone number, this is the mobile number, service interested and SEO, that is search engine optimization. And over here, the name comes as test, first name is test, last name is customer 455. Okay. As the response of this client has been captured over here in our trigger step, now this client is not going to be an existing client. Okay. So now what we are going to do is we are going to set up our second route over here. We're going to simply clone this first route from here. We're going to clone this route. Okay. I'm going to give a name to this route again, and it is going to be new customer. Okay, this is the name of the route that I want to give. Now we're going to set up this route right here. As you can see, few steps over here has already been set up. So now we're going to make some changes as this was a cloned route. That's why you can see this step over here. Okay, now over here for the filter, you can see it says that when now this customer ID will not exist. It says does not exist. I'm going to select the filter type as does not exist. Then only this route 2 of the new customer should be executed. I'm going to click on this save and send test request button. As I've done that, we have received a response. The status comes as error and the message comes as condition is false. As why it is coming as error and false, you can see over here as this customer ID does exist, which is not equal to this filter type, that is does not exist. That is why it comes as error and condition is false right here. Okay. But whenever this ID does not going to exist, then over here the condition is going to come as true and the status is going to come as success. Okay. As now the filter setup is done, now as this customer does not exist in our Wave account, what we are going to do is we are going to firstly create that customer in our Wave account. For that, for the action step over here, I'm going to select it as Wave for my action application. And for the action event, we are going to select as create a customer. Then I'm going to click on this connect button. Window is going to appear in front of you, on which I'm going to select the existing connection. If you want, you can add a new connection. Then click on the save button right here. Okay. After that, over here, it is asking for us to select the business. In which business do we want to create the customer? I'm going to select the business from the drop down. It is asking for the customer's name. I'm going to map the data of the customer's name that I've received in this step right here. If you're going to scroll down, you can see this is the first name space, the last name is right here. Okay. This is the first name over here. I'm going to map the data of the first name again. So in the response, I've received the first name right here. I'm going to map it. Similarly, for the last name, I'm going to map the data of the last name that I've received right here. I'm going to map the data. For the email over here, I'm going to map the data of the email that I've received. Okay, so over here, this is the email. I'm going to map the data. For the mobile number, I'm going to map the data of the phone number that I've received right here. This is the phone number. I'm going to map the data. Okay, it is asking for all these details, which I do not have. So I'm going to skip the part. For the currency over here, I'm going to manually type in INR because this is the currency that I'm dealing with in my business. After that, over here, it is asking for all these details, which I do not have right now. So I'm going to skip the part. And then simply, I'm going to click on the save and send test request button. As I'm going to do that, you can see you received a customer ID. Now, using this customer ID, we are going to create the invoice in our Wave account. Okay. So as now the customer is created, now for this customer, we are going to create an invoice. For that over here, action application is going to be Wave, action event is going to be create invoice with basic details. After that over here, it is asking for the business. Okay, the business is going to be Pabbly only because this is the business in which I want to create my invoice in. Now over here for this customer ID, I am going to map the data of the customer ID that we have just now created. So this is the customer ID. I'm going to map this customer ID over here. Okay. After that over here, as we have changed the customer ID, it is asking for the product item description. These are all the same details. So I'm going to skip all the part and then simply I'm going to click on the save and send test request button right here. As I've done that, we've received a response in which we have received the invoice ID. So this means the invoice has now been created. For checking that the invoice is created, I'm going to go back to my Wave account. I'm going to go back to my invoices section right here. As I'm going to come to the invoices page, you can see a new invoice has been created in my Wave account. Okay, if you're going to check over here, the invoice is created for test customer 455. You can see right away that says test customer 455 invoice. This is the invoice date and time. You can see right over here. The item comes as search engine optimization. That was the item that was selected by my customer. Quantity as 1. Price as 15,999. This is the same amount. So you can see over here as the invoice is fully created for this new customer that we have created in our Wave account. This means that we fully created an automation between Paperform and Wave with the help of Pabbly Connect. Okay. So now to sum up till now what we have done. Now every time whenever by the client a new form submission is going to be done using Paperform, as they're going to show the interest in any of my services, they're going to select the service that they're interested in. For the service that they have selected while doing the form submission, an invoice in my Wave account is automatically going to be created for every client who does the form submission. Okay. And this is how you create this amazing automation between Paperform and Wave with the help of Pabbly Connect. So this was it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Not just with these applications, you can create automation between multiple other applications with the help of Pabbly Connect. If you have any questions, you can contact us on support@pabbly.com. If you have any queries, you can check the queries on forum.pabbly.com. And if you have any pricing related issues, then you can check out this link. If you like this video, please do subscribe to our channel, hit on the like button, comment on if you have any questions or doubts, and please share this video.